The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
this is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
It might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't care.
The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report. A sunny day here in Southern California. Probably not a sunny day for the Boston Celtics, who odds are will be eliminated tonight. So we're going to talk about not sports. That's not really a sentence, but on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline, the host of MSNBC's Way Too Early with Willie Geist. It really is way too early. He's also on Morning Joe. He's the ringleader of, or maybe the referee between Joe Scarborough and Minka. And he also wrote a book, which has a really long title. It's called Loaded, Become a Millionaire Overnight and Lose 20 Pounds in 2 weeks or Your Money Back. He wrote that with Boyd McDonald. Willie Geist, what's happening?
Bill Simmons, thanks for having me on, man. It is way too early. It's always way too early.
Way Too Early is on at 5:30 in the morning, and everybody asks you this, but I'm always fascinated when people have to get up that early because I just feel like I'd become a serial killer. What time are you getting up?
That's number one question. The only thing anyone wants to know about me is what time I wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
Doesn't show like a whole depth of interest in me.
No.
It's a question.
It's compelling.
Question. It's the alarm goes off at 3:15 a.m. and honestly, you hit the snooze once, you're probably out of bed at 3:45.
Yeah.
You're out of the shower where the water mixes with tears. Just for like 15 minutes, kind of warm shower.
Right.
Reconsidering.
It's like a Soakwood shower. Yeah, it's like a Soakwood shower. Right.
It's a little like leaving Las Vegas shower.
Oh, yeah.
Vodka, and you're like
right.
on the floor bleeding a little bit, you know? It's that shower.
Right. Okay.
So I get in about 4:30 in the morning. The show's at 5:30. So when I started doing it, it seemed like an obscene middle of the night thing to do, which it is. But actually on the East Coast, it turns out, and I wasn't aware of this because I was never awake, but there are people awake who watch the show. They're on the treadmill or they're getting their kids ready. I don't know what it is. And then we actually get a good share of our emails anyway from the West Coast because it's 2:30. You got people rolling in from the bars. Why you would turn on a news show when you roll in from the bar, I don't know. But
that's a little weird, yeah.
Yeah, it's weird, but we get, I would say, half of our emails, probably because they're drunk or smoking weed or whatever. They just start firing off long, heartfelt emails. So there's a little balance, east-west balance.
I think it's funny that you get up at 3:15 every day because that's when James Brolin in Amityville Horror, that's when he used to wake up. That's when the demons in the house would wake him up, and then he'd go down and stare at the fireplace. So you might want to change the alarm clock to like 3:17.
Just bump it up a couple minutes.
Yeah, just shave it by 2 minutes just to be safe. I don't want you to have an axe.
I did not know that. I'm definitely changing. I'm going to 3:17 starting tomorrow. It does feel like night terror sometime. It's weird.
You know, I was so scared of that movie as a kid that if I ever woke up and I saw the clock was anywhere near 3:15, I would just stay up in terror until it was 3:15 and then assume terrible things were going to happen.
Just to get past that time, there's no question about it. The worst part about it, though, is when you're driving in because it's 4 o'clock, 4:15, the bars are kind of just letting out in New York. So you're cruising down, you're showered, you got a suit on, you're driving in. And there are people, spilling out of the bars in slow motion, hugging each other, just rejoicing in how great life is. And you're just totally on the other end of the spectrum from it. So that's probably the most depressing 9 minutes of my day is the cruise through the bar scene where, like, the 25-year-olds are just beginning life,
And you probably see, people making out, people fighting.
Oh, totally.
Right.
Yeah. They're smoking cigarettes, and then they're making out. And they're like, who knows? Maybe they're going somewhere next, too. 4:15, you're probably going back to somebody's apartment to continue the party. And my day has already started. It's very depressing.
Corolla has a whole thing, because when Corolla would get up at 6 o'clock for his show, that would be the first question everybody would ask him, like, how do you do that? And it would make him mad that people would be mad that he got up that early. He's like, it's my job. What am I going to do? Hey, I have to get up then. Why does it make you angry?
Exactly. I don't have a choice. And all things considered, I go to an air-conditioned TV studio for work, so it's kind of hard to complain about my job. I could stand for it to be like an hour later, but, I'll take it.
It is interesting that people are up at 5:30, because I always felt like I don't think I could ever do a morning radio show, but if I ever did, I would at least want it to start at 6:30, because anybody who's listening between 6 and 6:30 isn't awake anyway, and I wouldn't be awake. So I never understood why we decided that 6 o'clock was the start time for a morning show.
It is, and it is on the radio shows and cable news. The network morning shows start at 7, so that's kind of where you want to drift. That gets you another hour of sleep. But, like all these guys who've done these shows forever, you talk to Matt Lauer or any of them, you say, oh, you've been doing this for 15, 16 years, you must get used to it. And they just look at you and they say, nope, you never, ever get used to it. You sort of change your life and you cope with it. You cope with it a little bit, but you can never get used to waking up in the dark and going into work at 4 in the morning. It's not normal. It's not human.
Tell me about Morning Joe, because it's really kind of fascinating. You built this show around a guy who's pretty unconventional on TV, and it's almost like he has his strengths and he has his weaknesses. The show manages to somehow accentuate every strength he has. I think it's one of the smartest shows of the last 20 years on television.
Wow.
Did it stumble into that, or did it eventually become that? I mean, was it that way right away, or did it stumble?
No, I think we stumbled into it. This was Joe. This show was Joe. You're talking about Joe Scarborough. He was a former Republican congressman, and this was his idea. So you know where this all comes from is Imus from the Rutgers comments. It was a little over 4 years ago, because his radio show was simulcast on MSNBC for 3 hours every morning. So he ate up all the morning programming on MSNBC. So he says what he says, NBC fires him. All of a sudden, they've got 3 hours wide open in the morning. So they were just shuttling. Like, when I say they were grabbing people in the hallway and putting them on TV, that's only an inch away from the truth of what was happening. It was like, go fill the 3 hours. So Joe saw the window, and he started putting a crew together. Sounds like Ocean's 11, but he was putting a crew together to see who could run the mornings. And, we rotated a bunch of people through. He didn't know Mika Brzezinski that well. I didn't know him that well. I'd been in his primetime show a little bit, but he knew what he wanted it to be. So I think in his mind, it was always set this way. It was going to be smart conversation, smart people, not crossfire, not he's a Republican, he's a Democrat, go, throw the red meat in the middle. It's just supposed to be breakfast table, table conversation. I actually always call it fantasy breakfast. It's like if you could have the smartest people you could think of to talk about the thing you wanted to talk about sitting around. We've gotten to the point, and it took a couple of years, where we get those people to come on.
Yeah.
So whatever's happening that day, we can draw them in. So if you're, I have no business sitting around the table with, Jack Welch and all these political leaders, but they're there every morning, and you pretend and you jump in the game, and it's cool to be in the middle of it.
I like how informal it is, too. Like, you'll see there'll be coffee on the table. The papers will be scattered. Yeah. It kind of feels like it's a tiny bit Wayne's World-y. Just a tiny bit.
Yes. No, that's right. It's funny because it still has a little of the way Imus's show felt. It was a radio show, and they just put cameras on it. Yeah. Ours is that way. You know what I mean? It's produced more than his was, but you get people walking onto the set in the middle of a block and sitting down, or someone walks off in the middle of the block because they got to go to the bathroom. It's like, and at first I think that was jarring to people, but then they kind of related to it. This is how we sit around and talk in the morning, and we don't do all these TV conventions where we, say thank you for the toss, and all these things that you're supposed to do when you watch television. It's just people sitting around talking, and if you get good people, smart people you recognize, people you respect talking, then suddenly you kind of got a good show, hopefully.
But you do have a couple expensive crane cameras. That's the one.
We do.
That's the one thing.
We invested in two crane cameras. We even got a weather map. We have a few things that the old shows have.
Every year you had one thing that cost more than $50.
Yeah, exactly. And our Starbucks is free, where you have a partnership with Starbucks, so we don't even pay for our own coffee. We're just we're just swindling. We're cutting deals left and right.
And you're in 30 Rock, right? I've been there before. Yeah.
Yeah, we started in Secaucus, and then 3 years ago they moved all of MSNBC over to 30 Rock. So I mean, you've been there. That actually never gets old. You walk elevators, and you know Letterman and Belushi and all these guys went up in these elevators. There's something about that, you know. We have an edge the way other buildings don't have that.
I've been there twice. I've been on your show twice, and each time it was pretty early, and I was still on West Coast time body clock, so it was like I barely remember anything. I barely remember meeting anybody. I don't remember what we talked about. I don't really remember anything about it. I just remember just hoping that I didn't seem like I was sound asleep.
And you're coming in from a book signing the night before. You're just stunned. You're just on your heels for like 6 minutes. We're just throwing stuff at you.
I had one. It was a New York signing the night before that went to like 11:30 or 12. And then Jacoby, who you know, he decides he's going to take everybody to a Russian bar for one drink, which turned into a couple. So I went to bed at like, I don't know, 2:30. 2 o'clock, 2:30, and then had to get up, I think, at 6:30, which was 3:30 West Coast time. And the whole time I'm thinking, like, this show's in HD, I think. Like, this is going to be a catastrophe. But I guess I didn't really get any emails or tweets about it, so I guess so many people must go on your show kind of not looking at their best that nobody even notices.
No, there's a lot of slick back hair, puffy eyes, people stumbling out of the shower. Some people miss their hits, you know. Sometimes they just don't show. But that's our show. We just go on the air and say,
Is that true?
Yeah, you know, it's like we can't get in touch with so-and-so. Hopefully we'll get them on later. Our show is so casual that it's like, you know, we appreciate it when a guest shows up. I think that's probably a good thing. But if they don't, you know, what are you going to do? They're people. They sleep in sometimes.
So you're basically the point guard of that show. You're running the offense, kind of getting Joe shots, getting Minka shots, setting up the guests, throwing in the news.
I mean, they'll run some doubles at Joe, and he'll throw it out. I'll knock down a three. I give you like 16 and 7 boards, I'd say. Yeah. Joe's putting in like 26 a night. So
good defense.
You need me there. You're not going to win a title without me. I'll just go ahead and say it. You know? Right.
You're somewhere between Mike Connolly and Rajon Rondo.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to give myself Rondo. I mean,
I said somewhere between. I'm just giving you parameters. Yeah, you're somewhere in the middle.
Push up toward Rondo a little farther from Connolly.
Yeah, I'm triple-double.
Good, though, doesn't he, Connolly?
Connolly's a little better than we thought. Well, how do you follow? You're a big sports fan. How do you follow sports when you have to get up at 3:50 in the morning?
I got to watch SportsCenter the next day. I can watch the end of some East Coast games, not baseball because that's 3 hours. NBA, if the game starts at 7, it's over at 9:23. I can watch it. But West Coast, I'm totally tuned out of. So I got to watch SportsCenter to keep up. You know, go on ESPN.com, block out 3 hours of my afternoon and read your column, and then I'm good to go.
So you get home at like 10:30, then you catch up on SportsCenter, you catch up on all the stuff. Then you get to be a dad for a few hours, I'm guessing.
Yeah, you know, we're actually there doing stuff. I don't get home till after lunch. But then when I get home, she's about to be 4 and a little guy who's about to be 2. So you know exactly where I'm coming from. There's no rest in a New York apartment. There's nowhere to hide. Right. Just go in the bedroom. You lock the door. My daughter figured out how to pick the lock with a pair of scissors. She comes in. It's survival, you know. It's a game of survival.
You know, my daughter opened our front door when she was like a year and a half and went out in the street in the pitch black dark. And our 2 dogs followed her out, and there was a car that was coming, and the car stopped because they saw the dogs. Yeah. Nobody ever tells you about that 17 to 18 month stage when the kid can suddenly open the door and you don't know. You find out the hard way, basically.
And I've got in our we had to start chaining the lock on the door because my son, who's he's going to be 2 in 2 months, he opens the front door to our apartment. Yeah. And it's New York, so he just takes off down the hallway. He's got a long hallway. He's got like 10 doors. He's banging on doors. And as you know, it happens in 5 seconds. It's like I opened the fridge to find the milk I was going to get you. I turned around, and you were like halfway down the hallway knocking on people's doors. He can't get too far. That's the good news up in the New York apartment building.
When my daughter escaped, I was watching Kevin Durant play in college, I think against Texas A&M and AC Law the Fourth. And it was a great game.
When you lost your daughter.
I do. I was watching this great game, and my daughter was like sitting there reading a book, and I was into it, and she left the room for a second, and then within that weird parental radar kicks in about 20 seconds later, like something's wrong. I need to figure out what's going on right now. And you just you shake into it and you're like, oh my God, she's not here. Wait, the front door's open. But yeah, it can be in 5 to 15 seconds. You just never know.
Yeah, and the front door wasn't even in your possibility set.
No.
Like, that can't happen. I'm good on that. There's no way she's in the street. Like, that's not a possibility.
Tell me about politics like the last few years.
Yeah.
See, it seems like it's just not as fun to be on TV for all this stuff because you have all these different groups that are just so volatile now that it doesn't seem like you can really be liked by everybody. Is it possible to be liked by everybody at this point in 2011?
You mean as a politician or
as somebody who's on TV talking about this stuff? Is it possible to have a 100% approval rating?
Absolutely not. And that's why, cable, as you know, TV it's niche television. No one is even trying anymore to be all things to all people. There's CNN plays it down the middle, and they've suffered for it. Fox, to their credit, figured it out a long time ago. They figured it out before any of the other news places. Know your audience and talk to them. So MSNBC has, drifted left a little over the last couple of years and succeeded doing so. Our show isn't. Joe's a pretty hardcore conservative, but you got to know your audience. And our audience, Morning Joe, is D.C., New York, kind of beltway political media class. But you say one thing, you're going to get a million tweets and emails and blog posts from these hypersensitive sites who've committed themselves and dedicated their lives to monitoring television, telling you why this one word you used was out of place. There are entire websites dedicated to that. So I don't think, not only is it not possible to get 100% approval rate, no one's trying, and the people who are trying are failing. You just find an audience, find your niche, and go to it, and that's what's working,
So what's the biggest criticism of your show from the other side, from the opponents of...
the MSNBC audience skews left. So they protest in general that Joe Scarborough, a former Republican congressman and conservative, has 3 hours a day. Like, this is our network. Fox had their network, and then when the Bush years kicked in, MSNBC gave a voice to the left. So progressives resent, I think, the fact that we even exist. But it's hard for them to argue that because you have Joe, but then there's Mika, and most of the other people on the show are, tend toward progressive, and it's not a food fight. We're not screaming at each other. So, people who watch our show, they pick on, they say we go after Obama too much. But then there are conservative sites that watch our show, too, and say we're MSNBC and we're apologists for Obama. Like, you cannot win, and people parse your words, and they take things out of context, and so you just block it all out. There's nothing you can do about it.
Was the Bin Laden thing obviously the biggest thing that's happened since you've had this show?
Yeah. That was huge. There are certain events that come along, and it kind of like snaps you out of your stupor.
Yeah.
Because we get wrapped up in the birth certificate thing, and Donald Trump's bringing up the birth certificate, and you find yourself having serious conversations about that and whether or not it's a valid issue. And then every once in a while, something like that just comes and smacks you across the face and reminds you what's really going on in the world, and that all the other stuff that you spend your 3-hour show deliberating every day is worthless. So that was big. I think I told you too. I was getting ready that Sunday night to go on Watch What Happens Live, the Andy Cohen show, the live kind of clubhouse show on Bravo where they talk about the Real Housewives of the OC.
Nice.
So what the setup for that show is you have a real housewife and then sort of a person who's not so up on the show. So they'll have like Tina Fey's on or Rachel Dratch, they'll have like good people on. So he invited me to come on with this girl named Jesus Barbie. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her work from the
I am not.
Of the OC. I was not either, but I read up on her. Alexis is her name. And she lives up to the title. She's got the Barbie frame. She's got the whole thing, but she lives for the glory of God. So we're sitting there in the green room, and they pour you a drink. They got this whole setup. I got a bourbon and ginger, and you're talking to Jesus Barbie, and you're trying to figure out what you're going to say. And then the TV comes on, the news, and there's rumors that, the president's going to have a press conference tonight. What's he going to say? What's he going to say? Then you're going, oh, there's probably something happened with Libya. Then you're going, it's Sunday night at 10:30. You know, something's going on here. Then the word starts coming out. It might be bin Laden. It was, of course, bin Laden. So I'm sitting there with a drink in my hand. I'm ostensibly a news person, right? I mean, I should probably not in my best interest. It's not a good split screen on those blogs to have me on the one hand sitting next to Jesus Barbie with a maker's mark.
Right.
And bin Laden's corpse on the other side with Brian Williams reporting. So I had to bail out on poor Andy Cohen. He was very generous about it, but Jesus Barbie was left to carry the show on her own, and I'm.
Oh my God!
She didn't want to. So when the question is, where were you when bin Laden was killed? I was drinking with Jesus Barbie, one of the Real Housewives of the OC.
Was not expecting that story. You know, I would argue that it was the greatest time ever for the whole thing to happen. It was late enough Sunday night, so you must have had the most watched show you've ever had the next day, right?
Yeah, it was big. You know, the thing that happens always with breaking news is CNN. People go to CNN. It's amazing.
Oh.
They have this instinct that's been built in. They're the first cable network ever, 1980, whatever it was. It's the most interesting thing because they've fallen back in the ratings on a day-to-day basis. The minute there's breaking news, people go to CNN. CNN beats Fox on those days. Fox clobbers everybody like it's not close. And then on those days, people go to CNN. It's amazing. So, yeah, I had a big audience relative to what I usually have, but CNN buried us. It's amazing. It's like this weird, like, intuitive brand loyalty thing that it's something's happening in the world. I got to go to CNN. But it takes a big event to push it over the top, and then it goes away after a couple of days, and, like, order is restored. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's like a familiarity thing almost.
It is. It is. They remember turning it on with James Earl Jones, or they remember watching it, with 9/11 or whatever it was, and it's like the safe place to go for those few hours, I guess.
So now the narrative is slowly shifting into the he's not really dead narrative, which you knew was coming, but it still seems ridiculous as it's happening, because
you're just wondering how long it's going to take for the conspiracies to start.
Oh, yeah.
We got like a week out of it, I'd say. We got a week out of it.
Yeah.
But the thing that's supposed to disprove it all are the videos, that the Department of Defense released where he's sitting in his compound watching himself on TV, kind of wrapped up in a blanket with bad satellite TV coming in. My favorite part about that is when they showed the video, they said, here he is sitting on the floor watching TV. This proves that this is not just symbolic. He wasn't hiding in a cave. He was still the operational leader for Al-Qaeda. Why does that prove he was still the operational? Because he had satellite TV, because he could watch television. It means he was calling the shots. I mean, by that standard, Bill, you'd have, the special forces dropping into your apartment pretty quick. Then you have like 18 TV screens in your house.
I don't have computer drives with all this stuff on it. That's what I think. They're going to come up with some of the stuff from...
Oh, yeah.
The stuff he stole, that will make it pretty clear that they broke into this guy's place. But I still think people are going to need the bullet hole photo, and nobody wants to see it. And I don't know. It's going to head to this place where eventually they're going to feel obligated to release the photo just to shut everybody up. And then we have this horrible photo on the Internet for the rest of our lives. So
it's 2011. That photo's going to get out one way or another. We're going to see it. But the thing that the people who don't think he's dead are not going to not think he's dead. They're not going to think he's dead because they see that picture. It's like the birth certificate thing. Obama's finally like, all right, you know what? Here it is. All right, stop. This is ridiculous. Here's his birth certificate. And within 30 seconds, that's a forgery.
Right.
That's a forgery. That's not a real. So people who really believe that stuff are unswayed by evidence, in my experience.
That was a pretty good month for him. It makes me feel like the Bulls are going to win the title because it feels like it's the spring of Obama.
Yeah.
Just would tie into everything else that's going on for him that the Bulls would do well.
Nice cherry on top for him. You know what's interesting, though? When you heard the news, Obama got Osama, your first reaction is this is huge for him. His approval ratings are going to go through the roof.
Yeah.
And our political culture is such that, like, you don't even get that anymore. So
it went up like 7 points, right?
Yeah, it went up. It depends what poll you look at. Our NBC one had him only up 3 points, which is within the margin of error, which means there was no movement. There was one out today that had him at 60, which put him up, I guess, like 8 or 9 points. So, but it's not like he did it. He's our man. That's our guy. He's strong on foreign policy. He is American after all. He is one of us. He does care about this country. It's like, no, I still actually hate the guy. I think he's corrupt, and I don't think he was born here. It's like, if killing Osama bin Laden, like, what could you do beyond killing Osama bin Laden that would please wide swaths of the country? If that doesn't do it, I don't know what's going to do it.
Plus, to do it in such like a Hollywood way. It was like make or break. It was like calling a flea flicker on 3rd and 10 or something. You know, it was really like when you read, I was fascinated. I read like every story over the last week and a half, and it was fascinating to me how high risk it was. It really could have failed. This could have been it. And if it failed, then I don't think he gets reelected.
There's no question. He said on 60 Minutes the other night it was a 55-45 proposition.
It's crazy. It was like doubling down on a 9.
He doubled down on a 9 and didn't tell the country he was invading that they were coming. So, like, the way it was described by our reporters, they get in, one of the helicopters goes down, no less. Yeah. The other one comes in, picks the guys up, and then so the Pakistani army scrambles jets, and it's a race to the border. I mean, you couldn't script this, you know? Yeah. So you've got the helicopters taking off, the planes are coming in, and they have to turn back at the Afghan border. But I mean, you got to give the guy credit. That's a tough call, like you said. That could cost him everything. It went the other way. Jimmy Carter had the same thing, trying to get the hostages out, and he fell down on the 45 of the 55-45, and it probably cost him a re-election. So that's an unbelievable call. When we do the movie, and I'm sure there will be 6 versions of it, we should all just agree. Like, Hollywood should just agree. Let's put this in the right hands. This movie needs to be really good. Let's find, there's a list of maybe 7 directors who would do this movie as well as it could be done, and maybe 8 screenwriters. Who do you go with on that? Who's your first choice? You probably go with like Catherine Bigelow, somebody like that. Somebody who's done a good action movie that had real tension before. And I think she's actually doing the Bin Laden movie anyway. It was about the failed attempt to kill him. They should just have her scrap that and do the real one. I worry that she might be too cerebral. I want to make sure we got the explosions. I want it to be embellished a little bit, you know? Well, no. What were they called? The J-Rocks? Yeah, the guys that went in. Yeah, I mean, CBS has to be... J-Sox, sorry. Yeah. CBS has to be killing themselves that they didn't have the NCIS version of these guys yet. People are probably getting fired. How do we not have this show? SEAL Team 6. How do we not have SEAL Team 6? You read about these guys. I mean, they die routinely. Yeah. In these various things, and it just seems like it doesn't seem like there's any more high-risk military job than that job. And then some of the stuff they do, it's really hard for me to believe with all these dumb TV shows we have. That seems like a TV show I'd actually watch. Oh, I would watch. No question. It's coming. Sure. It'll come next year. It'll come. They were described to me by someone as the most dangerous people on the face of the earth. I mean, there's your tagline right there, right? Yeah, and I always thought they were Green Berets, but these are allegedly Green Berets multiplied by like 3. Yeah, and it's like one of those training things where you have to be in the upper 0.0001% just to get into the training, and then they lose like 99% of those guys. So you're down to basically like 10 people out of 308 million Americans who can pull this off. It's crazy. It's amazing. We got to get that movie right, though. You can't blow that story like, the Hank Gathers movie or something. Right. Well, and also like you have so many different ebbs and flows just in the 45-minute mission. Yeah. If the helicopter's failing, that's like you suggest that in the writers' meeting, and people would go, no, come on, exactly. That's ridiculous. We can't have that. Like we don't need it. The story's already good. Let's not do that. Yeah, stop it with the helicopters, and then we'll have them race to the border. Nah, come on, that's a little over the top. We can't have them race to the border. But then you do have to get like whatever the tagline, sort of the Harrison Ford "Get Off My Plane" to just kind of button up Air Force One. Like we need something at the end that maybe didn't happen. Just a line, Did you think Obama turns to Hillary and says something like, I don't know. Oh, Geronimo is something. Yeah, something with Geronimo in it. That was another thing, is it gave us one of the great pictures in recent American history. I think. That one shot of everybody watching, and Hillary just has her hand over the face at the perfect moment. And just it's just awesome. Didn't you stare at that for 20 minutes, that picture? I did. We talked about it for like an hour on our show the other day. But there was controversy about that because... Why? Hillary Clinton had her hand over her face, and her explanation, she actually said that she was in Italy. She said, no, I wasn't shocked. I wasn't worried. said, it's spring and my allergies were acting up. And it was not like a tongue-in-cheek thing. It was like kind of a how dare you pick on the woman in the room. Oh, I'm the one who's shocked while all the men are calm and can weather this.
Oh.
And then it became a whole, it was like a whole, I work in cable news, so everything becomes an issue for an hour and a half and then you forget about it. But but that was it was like a thing for a day.
Yeah, see, that I was so involved in the NBA playoffs that I missed that story.
Well, it's better. Like, that's the thing the public doesn't need to know about. Let it settle out, and you can sift through, and we filter out the crap that we talk about every day.
I also enjoyed. I still get Time magazine, and I like that they anointed Bin Laden with the red X, and then they had this whole page about this is only our 4th red X we've ever given out. It's like oh, congratulations, Obama. I mean, Osama, it's your 4th red X. You're the 4th red X ever.
It's good company, though, right? You got Hitler in there.
Well, there was one weak link. There was the guy from, not Saddam Hussein, but the guy from 06, like the terrorist planner guy, who isn't really totally a household name. I felt like they kind of shoehorned him in.
I know. He didn't earn it. They got antsy. I think they got to the point in 06 where they're like, we're never going to catch Bin Laden. And we need some symbol for the war on terror, so let's just go with this guy.
Yeah, they shot that. They kind of shot their wad with the red X.
They did. You wish you had taken the long view on something like that and just waited out.
Yeah, it was like Nash's second MVP.
The red X.
Right. Yeah. So Time magazine, if you're listening, I'd be more careful with the red X.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if it had just been Bin Laden, Saddam Hussein, and Hitler, that's a pretty strong 3.
That's strong. That's your big 3 right there.
It really is. Then it's like anybody else who comes up in the future for the red X, they have to be on that level.
How did Stalin escape the red X?
I don't know.
I don't want to second guess, but 60 million people, you know what I mean?
Well, I don't remember. Did Stalin die before or after Hitler?
He was after.
Yeah, that's weird.
We could split hairs all day, but you could throw a lot. You could get Pol Pot in there if you want to. I mean, he wasn't as big on the world stage. He might be like a second team all tyrant.
Oh, second team red X?
Yeah, second team red X. But I think Stalin's got to be on there with Hitler.
Stalin should have been on there. Maybe they didn't want to do it twice within like a short time span. Maybe retroactively they could go back and give him red X status, like career achievement Oscar.
The Veterans Committee could vote.
Yeah, something like that. So, one more question. You came from a sports background, and now you're in a news political background. Does it stay that way, or do you come back to sports? Why don't you have a show for us?
I don't know. I would love to do both. How's that for a cop-out answer? I kind of like the Bryant Gumbel setup,
Yeah.
Where like he was had a great sports career, then a great news career, Today Show, and now he's got the HBO Real Sports thing.
Does that mean you want to read? You want to have a notepad and glasses on and read from a notepad every time you come back from commercial, or no?
Scribble the notes. You got to scribble the notes coming out of the break. That's the move. I actually I'm a huge sports fan. I love sports, and I've found I've always been into politics, and I've really gotten into the news side of stuff. So I think I like to do news primary. And then if I could do pieces for ESPN or some like a weekend show or something, I'd love to carve something out to do.
Ooh, can I be on that show?
Yeah.
I'd like to be on that show.
What's the show? We got to talk about what the show is.
Willie and Billy.
You don't want to work too hard. That's the key. So you want to
No, I don't. No, I'm so lazy. Yeah, we could. I was just worried that your experience on IMAX ruined you on sports shows forever.
Listen, that was like the 9-month window in my career, like the 18 and a half minutes on the Watergate tapes where they just disappeared and people just don't talk about them anymore. I will say I had a blast with Max and met like some of my best buddies there. So we had a good time. It was just, it was kind of doomed from the beginning.
It was a bad format. It just was the wrong format, and they never kind of got out of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, yeah, it was. I mean, there were some things that you could look back on, but no one wants to hear us talk about.
No.
Why IMAX didn't last.
I saw Kellerman because I was on his show last week.
Oh,
and
yeah?
I still think he knows more about boxing than anybody who currently exists right now under 50 years old. It's unbelievable. Like, he was walking me through the whole reason why Sugar Shane had no chance against Pacquiao, and it was all about the footwork, and he was showing me the feet, and he's stepping on my feet to show me what Pacquiao was going to... I mean, it's just like, the show should be just Max explaining boxing to people who are just kind of like blown away by what he's talking about.
And isn't it amazing for someone of our age, which Max is, to have that knowledge about a sport that no one watches and hasn't watched for a long time? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say he has more knowledge of that sport than anybody in his age range multiplied by 2.
Oh, it's not close.
Yeah.
Because he has more than the guys in the next generation, or as much.
Right. So, Angelo Dundee is telling him to calm down.
Yeah, right.
Dan Duva's like, slow down, Max. Get some hobbies. But, yeah, it was pretty funny watching.
He caught on to that thing really young, and he started doing that cable access show in New York when he was like 12 years old because he grew up in the city. And Letterman used to watch his show, and Letterman had Max on when he was like 16 or something, like 16, 17 years old.
Is that true? I don't even remember that.
Yeah, had him on Letterman because he's like, who is this kid? He's 12, and he's talking about Jack Dempsey and the history of boxing in America, and Max Schmeling and all the, Joe Louis, and Letterman had Max on. Max is brilliant, actually, as you know, because he's spent time in a lot of ways. I mean, he knows.
Yeah.
He knows sports, and he's not afraid to tell you how much he knows about sports. That's why we like Max.
And he's also hosting a show in Los Angeles, even though he's a diehard New York fan, and somehow pulling it off, which will be his greatest career achievement ever. Because it's the most provincial place ever.
He is what L.A. people imagine New Yorkers to be, sort of the provincial, obnoxious New Yorker.
Yeah.
He is
Loud
that.
Yeah.
He is the very archetype of that. And now he's been out there for like 6 months. He's like, why would I ever leave L.A.? And on the other hand, he was always like, I would never leave the island of Manhattan unless I was going to a fight in Vegas. And now it's like, hey, the weather's beautiful. They got like trees and stuff. So he's like, he may never come back after all that.
Nobody comes back when they move here. Who comes back?
I was out there about 3 weeks ago, and every time I go out, you get a little bit more, because I'm a New York guy, but just get a little taste, and you go to Santa Monica, and you're like, yeah, okay, so I get to live in Santa Monica, and then, like, if you spend any time out there, and then you come back to New York, especially when it's cold out, you're like, why do I like this again? What's going on here?
Especially when you get 90 inches of snow in the winter.
Oh, God. It's brutal. It was a long one. It just got warm like a week ago, by the way. So you get 3 months of good weather, and then it's back into the pain cave for 9 months.
Give us your quick take on Jeter, because that's the big New York sports topic right now.
He's back. He's hitting.
Oh, he's back. Nice.
283.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was back.
Yeah, I think he's hitting like 360 over his last 10 games.
Look out.
I know. He is the master, though, this year of the dribbler back to the pitcher. Just like I'm telling you, like once a game, you could count on it. Just a little tapper to the pitcher, and sometimes it's so weak that he beats it out for a single because he'll get it a little to the left of the mound,
right.
And the pitcher will slip on the wet grass, or he can't get to it fast enough. So those are some of his hits. But they did last week. New York Times front page, not of the sports section, front page of the paper was about the demise of Derek Jeter. It was like this blasphemous piece that everyone was talking about.
But everybody was talking about the demise, so at some point they had to write about it.
Yeah, no, they did.
It was elephant in the room for a month.
It was, and it was. He had 2 extra up till like a week ago. He had 2 extra base hits all season, but he jumped like literally within the last week. He's up to 283. He's second on the Cano's like 290, and he's 283. By the way, they have no one hitting over 300 on the Yankees.
I know. But they've been weirdly more successful than they should be when you go player by player and ask the question, is this guy having a good season or not?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Go look at the stats. No one's really having a good year. The pitching's like, all right, pretty good. You got a few guys with ERAs under 4. They're holding it down. But that division will be interesting because the Red Sox, as you know, will be back, and we'll see what happens there.
You wrote...
What's your diagnosis for Crawford? Mike Barnacle doesn't sleep at night because of it. I can't even make fun of him about it anymore. He's so upset.
It's one of those things. It's just he started out with the deer in the headlights messed up look, and it's never really totally been able to shed it. I'm not worried yet. I don't get worried about the Red Sox till July. That's one of my new rules. Even when they were 2-10 and I was kind of freaking out, but it's like it's such a long season. And I'm 41 years old at this point, and I've panicked about Red Sox starts so many times. It's like at some point you just got to let it play out.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's what I always say. You get older and you realize there's every season there's something where the Royals, look out for the Royals. They're off to a 14-4 start.
Yeah.
Wow, things are different at Kauffman Stadium this year, and then they're 62-100 by the end of the year. It's such a long season. So
it really
is. There at the end.
And plus, when you get to spend $170 million on your players, you're probably going to be relatively okay, regardless.
You're going to be there. I can tell you as a Yankee fan, you will be there in the end if you outspend everyone. So
we're basically kindred spirits now.
World.
Yeah, we're Red Sox and the Yankees have been basically the same playing field for the last couple of years anyway.
No.
Tell us about so you wrote American Freak Show last year, and then now you're writing like a book every 9 months? What's going on?
I like to go every 6 just to keep it fresh, keep it hot. I'm doing a book signing tonight at Barnes & Noble on the Upper West Side.
Beautiful.
So, weren't you just here? I was there literally 6 months ago, so I'm sure no one will come, but why not? Yeah, the book's called Loaded, Become a Millionaire Overnight, Lose 20 Pounds in 2 weeks or Your Money Back. Wrote it with my buddy Boyd, who works in TV out in L.A. Went to college with him. It's basically, in a nutshell, a spoof of self-help books. So literally what we did was look at the Amazon Top 100, and it's all the South Beach diet or the Budokan diet or get rich, stay rich, be the best you. It's all self-help. So we tried to pander to as many of those audiences as we could with the title. So we got the Get Rich Quick and the Lose 20 Pounds in 2 weeks, which there's nothing about weight loss in the book, but we figured we might suck in a couple suckers. So it's basically 300 pages just completely mocking self-help books. It's a fun read. It's a light read. You breeze through it. It's a pretty good time.
Sounds like something I'd put on my toilet and then read as I'm sitting on the toilet doing things.
It's almost the quintessential toilet read. Like each chapter's short. There's pictures and graphs, and you can blow through a couple if you're not into it. So it's like $14. You pick it up. It's a good read.
I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to, and I'm going to put it on my toilet and read it that way.
Yeah, put it right above the can. I think you'll have some good times.
Last but not least, of interest to our BS Report listeners, your sister is marrying the guy who does half-baked ideas on the BS Report, Kevin Wilde. So you're about to be the brother-in-law of the half-baked ideas guy.
I couldn't be more proud. I think
it should go on your Wikipedia page. I don't know why it's not in there, to be honest.
We gotta get that.
Add that in there.
The deal is closed. I don't like to update the Wikipedia page till something's official. That's crazy, though. Yeah, he's my sister works at ESPN.
Yes.
By the way, I don't want to get into this, but she told me about the sports Emmys the other night. We don't want to talk about that, right?
Wow, it's like they're rigged. No, we probably don't want to talk about it.
Is that a joke? What's the anti-ESPN bias? Who has it? What's the problem?
For some reason with documentaries, HBO seems to get the nod year after year, and I think it has something to do with the people that vote are people who are all producers in New York City, and most of those people have had a cup of coffee with HBO at some point. And that, whatever. We knew we weren't going to win, even though 2 Escobars, I would say.
How do you know you're not going to win? You did a series.
I didn't even go this year because I knew
I
knew we weren't going to win. We never win. So I didn't even go this year, but I thought we were going to lose to the Bird of Magic one, which I would have been fine with because that was a good one.
Right.
But to lose to Lombardi, which was like just generic, typical HBO sports documentary, that one didn't sit very well with anybody.
No.
And I felt bad for the Bird of Magic guy. Like, if HBO's going to win, then that's the one that should have won.
Right. No question.
So, yeah.
They have Liev Schreiber, and you just can't overcome that sometimes, you know?
You know what's funny? I watched Salt last night. Did you ever see Salt with Angelina Jolie?
No, was it good?
It's actually pretty good. I liked it.
Is that the Angelina Jolie?
Yeah, it's a solid movie.
Really?
A solid action thriller, but Liev Schreiber's in it, and every time he talks, you just expect him to go, "That was the toughest year for Vince Lombardi." Like he has that voice, and you can't shake it. You almost don't want him to speak.
All right.
But,
I guess he's counting on the fact that the Salt audience does not have a lot of crossover with the Bird Magic audience.
Probably not. But yeah, it wasn't bad. I enjoyed it a lot more than I was prepared to. My wife only fell asleep twice during the movie, which meant
that's huge.
If anytime less than 5 for her means usually it's a good one.
I cannot remember and I'm going back a long time, the last time my wife was conscious through a movie. There's always that Friday night, yeah, let's just get a movie.
Yeah.
Within 15 minutes, regardless of whether it's good or not, just gone. Just
yeah.
out.
So once they have that second kid, it's just, they're done.
That's right.
Unless you get some drinks in them.
Yeah.
You have to go out and get some cocktails going, and then they'll rise to the occasion. That's what I found.
Well, listen, for what it's worth, you got that two Escobars, and those were all great, and you guys deserve to win, and that's all I'll say about it.
Well, thank you.
Great films.
And not that anybody cares, but we love working with your sister.
She's cool.
So there you
My
go.
sister, Libby Geist, is cool.
She's a good egg.
She's a good egg. Exactly.
I look forward to embarrassing myself at the wedding somehow. I don't know how. I haven't really decided what I'm going to do yet, but it'll probably be something.
Come with something.
I never get to go to these things anymore, so when I go, it's almost like the guy who's not used to playing in basketball games who gets thrown in and just starts jacking shots.
Just starts jacking up threes.
Yeah, I just start jacking up drinks, and then it just gets bad because I don't know what I'm doing anymore. But
now, are you like a rehearsal dinner toast kind of guy, or do you is that not your thing?
I wouldn't at this one, but
no?
Yeah, if it was like a close college buddy or something, I would do it.
But I'll just tell you, you would be well within your means. Our family and group of friends is the kind of crew that, like, if you stood up and put on a show if you gave me like 5 to 7 good minutes, your stock would go through the roof for the rest of the weekend. It's not like a thing, I really, I don't know them that well, I shouldn't do this.
All right.
That's not the vibe at all. So just think about it. You got some time to think about it.
Well, I do want to have a couple gambling props because this is something that I like to do at every wedding. And I think the big, most important prop is going to be the number of times Kevin Wildes cries during the weekend.
That's coming.
And the line right now is 5.5.
5. So how do you measure? Is that separate moments?
Separate times that he cries.
Okay.
Separate times.
5.5.
So it can't be a cry where then he calmed down and then he started crying again. It's got to be individual crying moments.
Right. So could there be more than one within the wedding? Could he cry when she walks down the aisle and then cry when the ring goes on?
Yes.
2 cries?
Those would be 2. Yeah.
Wow.
If he cries, see, we realized that. I realized in 1994 that we needed gambling props for the wedding because my friend Chip, I was in the wedding, he actually passed out during the ceremony on the altar, which wasn't funny at all when it happened, but now it's like really, really funny. Although I don't think he knows it's funny yet. It still might not be funny to him, but it'll be funny like in 20 years. But for us, it's funny now. But if we'd had gambling props, that absolutely would have been one of the props. Will Chip faint during the wedding? And it probably would have been, 20-1. So it would have been pretty exciting. I wish I had money on it. So anyway,
you would have made a lot of money on that.
Yeah, you need wedding props.
That's a rare event. All right, well, let's come up with some then.
I need more information on single groomsmen and single bridesmaids because then that has to be part of it and all different.
Right.
How many times the dad's going to cry? When will the dad cry? Et cetera,
I'm not going to broadcast it on the BS report, but we'll do some insider trading. Because I can give you different sort of emotion levels of members of my family.
Okay.
That'll make you some money, I would say.
I'm very excited for that. All right. Willie Geist, good luck with your book.
Bill, thanks for having me on, man.
And I'll see you on the Willie and Billy show in like 3 years.
Let's do it. 3 years.
Right. Take care.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.